Welcome to the History AI podcast, where the past comes alive with facts, anecdotes, and a dash of humor. Here are your hosts, Chuck and Marco.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the History AI podcast. I'm Marco.
And I'm Chuck. Today, we're diving deep into the Battle of New Orleans, a pivotal moment in the War of 1812. But before we do, let's set the stage.
Setting the stage. Just like how I set the stage for my high school play, which flopped.
Yeah, I remember that. But hey, it wasn't as dramatic as the backdrop leading up to the Battle of New Orleans.
Absolutely, Chuck. The early 19th century was a turbulent time. America, fresh from its Revolutionary War, was still trying to establish itself. Tensions with Britain were high. There were issues like impressment, where the British Royal Navy would force American sailors into their service.
Talk about a bad job switch. From the open seas with the stars and stripes to being press ganged onto a British ship.
No kidding. This led to the War of 1812. By late 1814, the British had already burned Washington, D.C. But they weren't done. They turned their sights to New Orleans.
Enter the key players. The British, obviously, wanted to end the war on a high note. They had veteran troops from the Napoleonic Wars. Leading them was Major General Edward Pakenham.
And opposing them? The Americans, led by the one and only Andrew Jackson. A motley crew of regular troops, militia, pirates, and free men of color.
Talk about a diverse team.
Absolutely. So, the British objective? Capture New Orleans, control the Mississippi, and potentially change the fate of the Louisiana Purchase.
The stakes were high. The British began their campaign in December 1814. They faced resistance not just from American troops, but also from the treacherous swamps and bayous.
Now a heroic story. During one of the initial skirmishes, the HMS Carolina was set ablaze by the Americans. The flames could be seen across the Mississippi.
Must have been a sight. But the British didn't give up. They tried bypassing the main American defense line by navigating through a canal.
Ingenious, but Jackson caught wind of it. He fortified his line and waited.
Now, let's delve into the meat of our story, the Battle of New Orleans itself.
Picture this, it's January 8, 1815. Fog blankets the early morning. The silence is palpable. Both sides know that the upcoming hours will decide the fate of the region.
The British, feeling confident with their battle-hardened troops, launched a two-pronged assault. One aimed at the east bank of the Mississippi, where the main American defenses lay, and another at the west bank to capture the artillery batteries and turn them on the Americans.
Jackson had fortified his line behind the Rodriguez Canal, which stretched from the Mississippi River to a cypress swamp. This trench was filled with water, making it a makeshift moat, and behind it stood a wall of earth, providing protection against British fire.
And the men manning it? Not just regular troops. There were Tennessee and Kentucky sharpshooters, positioned to pick off British soldiers. And, let's not forget Jean Lafitte's pirates, who provided artillery support.
The British assault began with a barrage. Rockets flew, artillery boomed, but the American line stood strong. The main attack, led by General Pakenham, was meant to go straight down the center, using ladders to cross the canal and scale the parapets.
But here's where things started going south for the Brits. The ladders and fascines, meant to fill the canal, were mistakenly delivered too far from the front line. British troops, including the 93rd Highlanders, were left exposed in open ground, subjected to a hail of fire.
Pakenham himself tried rallying his troops. On horseback, he led them forward, but was struck by grapeshot and fatally wounded. The British assault on the east bank collapsed.
Meanwhile, on the west bank, things looked a bit better for the British initially. They managed to break through the American line, capturing the artillery batteries. But, with the disaster unfolding on the east bank, they were forced to withdraw.
It was a catastrophic defeat for the British. In a matter of hours, they suffered over 2,000 casualties. The Americans? Barely a scratch in comparison.
It wasn't just about numbers. This was David defeating Goliath. A young nation showing it could stand up to the mightiest empire of the time.
And stand up they did. This battle cemented the War of 1812 in the annals of American history and showcased the spirit and resilience of a young emerging nation.
Now, for tactics. Jackson's use of local knowledge, trenches, and a strong defensive line was genius. The British, though experienced, struggled in the unfamiliar terrain.
In the grand scheme, even though the Treaty of Ghent had been signed ending the war, news hadn't reached the battlefield. Had the British won, the war's outcome could have been different.
Indeed. The victory bolstered American morale and nationalism. Jackson became a national hero. From the mind behind the History AI podcast comes an electrifying journey into the past. A ripple through time, Franklin's folly. Dive into a tale where Benjamin Franklin, America's beloved inventor, takes an unexpected journey through time. But with his leap, he unleashes a powerful ripple. Now, with dark forces lurking in the shadows, harnessing this energy to shatter and enslave the world, it's a race against time. Will Franklin fix the future? Or will history rewrite itself? Uncover the secrets. A ripple through time, Franklin's folly. Time has never been more fragile. Available on Amazon.
Welcome back, folks. Now, let's talk casualties.
The British had over 2,000 casualties. The Americans? A mere 62.
The battle's impact? Immense. It shaped the post-war era and American-British relations. The US emerged more confident and united.
And a final tidbit. The battle inspired a song.
Ah yes, the Battle of New Orleans. It topped the charts in 1959. A bit late, but hey, better late than never.
True that, Marco.
Before we end, a special thank you to our listeners. We love diving into history with you.
Absolutely. Don't forget to rate, follow, and share our podcast.
Got a topic in mind? Suggest it through our social media. We'd love to explore it.
And remember, history isn't just about dates. It's about stories, people, and the drama that unfolded.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time, I'm Marco.
And I'm Chuck. Stay curious and keep exploring.